Hi, my name is Nichelle, and today I'm going to be recommending you a book for every single song on Folklore. So, this idea actually started as something I wanted to do on TikTok. I started a TikTok last week. It's already doing very well, so I'm like pretty much TikTok famous. I think I have like 175 followers, so that's happening over at TikTok. So if you want to kind of follow along and you want to see more book recommendations based on the albums, you can follow me over there. The first song off of Folklore is The One, which iconically, with this like surprise album that nobody knew was coming, like what a special moment, first of all. When I woke up on that Thursday morning in July, and I actually saw Kate from Be There in Five's Instagram post first, and then I started seeing all those trees, and you see them in your feed and you're like, what is going on? And then Folklore was coming. Ugh, what a treat. And then the album starts and she says, I'm doing good, I'm on some new shit. And like, Taylor is cussing within the first line of a song, and we're just like happy for her that she's doing good. So The One is about this girl, maybe Taylor, maybe someone else, who is talking about this relationship that could have been the one but wasn't. And so I picked a couple books for this one. Some of these have one book, some of them have two. I think there might even be one or two that have three. There's no rhyme or reason here. So my first recommendation for The One is One Day in December by Josie Silver. This book starts with this girl seeing a man at a bus stop. Thought I saw you at the bus stop, but I didn't though. And she's like, this is my soulmate. It was like a love at first sight situation, and then things kind of spiral from there. It takes place over many years, I think over like 5 years, but it starts with this One Day of December. And my second suggestion is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is this is Taylor Jenkins Reid before her Famous Women series, so before everyone was obsessed with her. I read it recently. I'm kind of slowly working through Taylor's backlist. Taylor Jenkins Reid, not Taylor Swift, my two favorite Taylors. And Taylor Jenkins Reid will continue to show up on this list because Taylor and her, the two Taylors, are like very closely aligned. I am sure, I have no evidence, but I'm sure that Taylor Swift is out here reading Evelyn Hugo like the rest of us. Like, there's no doubt in my mind that she read and loved that book. Maybe she actually didn't love it. I don't know her book tastes. Except I do know that she loved A Fault in Our Stars back in the day. But who didn't? Okay. Anyway, though Maybe in Another Life follows this woman, but it follows her in two separate timelines. So it follows what would have happened if she would have made a different choice on this one singular night, and it like kind of follows it through. And it is so good. It is about like love and loss and like almost like an Invisible String sort of vibe too, but gorgeous, gorgeous. I loved it. The One vibes. Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Next, we have the Single Cardigan. It is part of the trilogy with Betty and August, and then we have Cardigan. And Cardigan is the story of Betty and James getting back together years down the line. At least that's how I understand it from the song and also from Taylor's comments in the Long Con sessions. But I feel like Betty is cool now. Like, she's wearing black lipstick. Like, Betty is much cooler than she was in high school. And so I really wanted to embody that, like, cool girl Betty is like doing bigger and better things for herself now. And so one of my favorites, like second chance romance, is 7 Days in June, and I feel like it does kind of have that like cool girl vibe. They were teenagers and they spent 7 days together in June, and now they're meeting up again as adults, and in the interim they've both been authors and they've both been secretly writing about each other in their books. It is one of the most gorgeously written romances. It gives like beach read vibes, but like a little different. Like, if you've read Beach Read and loved it, you will also love this. Not like if you read Beach Read and loved it, you don't need another one. You do need another one. And it's excellent. Then we have The Last Great American Dynasty, and we are back to our girl Taylor Jenkins Reid, because I cannot think of this song without thinking of this book, and vice versa. And that is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I think Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I think Taylor Swift. I like hope. Like, at least once a day. I like hope and pray that one day Taylor Swift will release a tell-all memoir about all the boyfriends and all the things we didn't know behind the scenes. Ooh, the dreams I have of that. But Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is about this famous actress who is old now and is telling the story of her life, and she's telling it kind of framed in the story of her 7 husbands. So she's been married 7 times, and Monique, the reporter that's interviewing her, kind of frames this interview around the question, and which one of those husbands was the love of your life. And it is just like blisteringly good. It's my favorite book of all time. And it gives me the last great American Dynasty vibes, because Evelyn was just this like woman, this like outsider into the old Hollywood, and she just like really shook things up and had a marvelous time ruining everything. Ugh, so good, so delightful. Next we had Exile. Exile is such a beautiful like breakup song, and it's like kind of it feels like very much in the midst of a breakup, and I had 2 suggestions for this one as well. The first one being Memorial by Brian Washington, which is about these 2 men, and they've been in a relationship for a while and things are starting to kind of fizzle, and we're dealing with a lot of family stuff. One of them flies back to Japan while his mother from Japan flies back and stays with his like boyfriend. Lots of drama, but it's like beautifully written. I loved the way it was written, and I think it tells the story of kind of a relationship falling apart in a beautiful way, as Exile does. And then my other suggestion is Bluets by Maggie Nelson. This is a story about grief, particularly grief over losing a relationship, but she tells it through this prose poetry that's centered around the color blue. It is one of the most beautiful books I've ever read. It's like super tiny, super short, and just like super quotable and beautiful. Loved it. Next, we're on to My Tears Ricochet. For me, My Tears Ricochet was kind of a hard one to find stuff for, because I feel like My Tears Ricochet is one of the songs in Folklore that is most closely connected to Miss Taylor. Like Miss Taylor Swift, not Miss Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's very confusing. Like it's really clearly about her losing her music and the kind of the record deal that went bad with Scott and Scooter. But, of course, I came up with a suggestion, and my suggestion, my book recommendation for My Tears Ricochet is The Comeback by Ella Bierman. This book is about this young actress who something happened to her. We don't know exactly what happened, but it's something with like a male director, and she's no longer acting. It was like fairly traumatic, and now she is trying to kind of come back and also seek a little bit of revenge, and we love that for her. I think My Tears Ricochet, one of the biggest themes was kind of about how these men profit off of taking advantage of young, talented women, and I think The Comeback is also about that. I really loved it. Mirrorball. Mirrorball has maybe my most controversial suggestion. I love Mirrorball. I love Folklore. Like, Folklore is my favorite album. That's why we started there. Mirrorball is a good one though, and I recommended Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This book actually Taylor has mentioned as being one of the inspirations for Tolerate It, but for me it fits Mirrorball even better than it fits Tolerate It, because I think the story of Rebecca, if you're not familiar, is the story of this woman who marries this man, and it's told from her perspective, and we never learn her name, but it's all about her she marries this very wealthy man. His late wife, I guess you would say, is dead, gone. I don't know if we know if she's dead. But Rebecca, and she kind of is this like looming figure over our narrator's story. And our narrator spends the whole novel trying to like fit in with this like rich society and like impress her husband and like make sure the servants like her and make sure everyone thinks she's cooler than Rebecca. It's very much about her performing and being so stressed about it. Like the whole time she's just like, I have literally no idea what to do, but I don't want to ask anyone because I don't want anyone to think I'm dumb. But also like a quick, like fun little like thriller also in the background. Next up we have Seven. Seven is a story about childhood friendship and like kind of the innocence and beauty of that sort of friendship. And my recommendation is Nothing to See Here by Kevin Wilson, which is the story of this woman who is asked by her like former friend to nanny her 2 stepchildren, and her stepchildren spontaneously burst into flame when they get like upset. The premise sounds so weird, but honestly this was one of the most like sweetest, heartwarming books I've ever read. It is about like found family and like learning to love people and about being yourself. It's just like gorgeous and really, really sweet. I loved it. August. August is a favorite that I didn't know I needed. I love August. I'm going to say that about literally every song. I will tell you which song is my favorite. We're not there yet. But my suggestion for August is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I think Normal People by Sally Rooney really captures this idea of like kind of a fleeting romance. I think August is really about this girl who has this very short-term romance, but it's like very important to her and very impactful for her. She like really falls in love, and it's like her first love, and it's like really special. And I think Normal People is kind of on again, off again, this relationship between Connell and Marianne, starting in high school and kind of going all the way through college, kind of embodies that same, like, this is a very like ephemeral thing, but it also is like deep and important and good. And it gives me major August vibes. I feel like August would love Normal People, you know? Next up, we have This Is Me Trying, and I cannot talk about This Is Me Trying without talking about Nesta, because I think this is like Nesta's song. I'm like a Nesta fangirl, if you haven't noticed, and I think Court of Silver Flames is like the perfect song for this. Of course, it's like the 5th book in a series, so it seems rude to suggest that. So I do have another suggestion, and that is The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. Helen Huang writes these like really sweet romances. This one is a little less kind of a traditional romance. The romance is, I would almost say, a side plot to our heroine's story, which is partly romance. It's about her, she's a concert violinist. She's hit kind of like a block where she's having a hard time playing because she has such bad kind of anxiety about like living up to everything that's been set upon her. And then her boyfriend breaks up with her because he wants them to like try other things before he like commits to her. And so she goes on a dating app and she meets Quan, this like lovely motorcycle man. And then her father falls ill, and a lot of the novel is about her kind of dealing with her parents' expectations of her and caretaking for her sick father. But also there's a sweet romance with Quan. So it's like both things. It's more women's fiction than romance. Definitely less romance than the like Heart Principle and like the cute cover would suggest, but also very, very good, and is about her kind of learning to like deal with her own personal struggles as well as communicate her needs to the people around her. Illicit Affairs was a hard one for me to look at too, because I think Illicit Affairs does such a beautiful job of talking about kind of the vulnerability and being the other woman. I think Taylor does such a gorgeous job exploring that. And so something that I feel like explores complex relationships in a similar way is Lisa Tadeo's 3 Women, which is actually a nonfiction piece, but it reads like narrative fiction. Like if you didn't know it was nonfiction, you would have literally no idea. She followed these 3 women for over the course of, I think, years, and then writes their stories, and they're all 3 in very different relationships. So one had an affair with a teacher. One, I think, is like in a throuple sort of situation. And I can't remember what the 3rd one was, but it's just this like dive into the complexities of being in relationships in kind of different forms. Next, we have Invisible String, which was my initial favorite on this album, although no longer as my favorite. I still love it. Invisible String is also like very closely tied to Taylor's love story, and I just like love how sweet it is. And a book that kind of captured that essence for me is another nonfiction, and it is Modern Love, which was edited by Daniel Jones, but it is actually just a collection of modern love stories from the New York Times, which have taken many forms. There's like a TV show on Amazon, there's like a podcast, but it's these real, true love stories, and some of them weren't as great as others. I think you always get that in collections, but the good stories like really made this collection like shine, and I think it's such a beautiful look at like real love. Next on the album was Mad Woman, and there's so many good ones for Mad Woman. I think we need more songs about female rage. Mad Woman, my suggestion was They Never Learn by Lane Fargo. This is the story of this woman who works at a college, and she is murdering men because they've been up to no good, and she's just like taking care of it, and we support her. Sort of. It's also told, there's like another perspective that we get who is like a college student, and later on we learn how their stories connect. It's really good, it's really fun, fast-paced, good time, female rage. We love female rage. Another suggestion for this one, I think anything by Carmen Maria Machado is like gorgeous. I like love Carmen Maria Machado. I think she is so incredibly talented, and like her work is exquisite. I think Her Body and Other Parties could like fit into this very nicely if you're looking for something else. And that's a collection of horror short stories. They're all like very like female-centered iterations of horror. Some of them were confusing, some of them did go over my head, but all delightful. Even if they went over my head, I was like, wow, that was cool. Next up we have Epiphany, and for Epiphany, I really wanted something to like capture this idea, this like sense of national tragedy, because Epiphany is both about World War I and her grandfather's experience in World War I, but also about COVID and nurses and doctors' experiences during COVID. So I wanted something that kind of highlighted that similar sense of like national trauma, and I think one that highlighted maybe not a national sense of trauma, although probably it should have been, but at least a community sense of trauma, was The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay, which is told again in two timelines, but the first timeline we get is about this man named Yale, who is a gay man in 1980 Chicago, and is, you know, most of his friends are also gay men, and it is about them and their kind of group of friends going through the AIDS epidemic. And then the second timeline we follow is one of those men's younger sisters. So she was kind of tangentially involved in Yale's group, but now she is an adult in present day, and she's in Paris trying to bring her daughter home. Her daughter like ran away, and she's trying to like deal with that. It's very, very good. Next up, we have Betty. My recommendation for Betty is Anna Kay by Jenny Lee. I loved Anna Kay. It is a modern retelling of Anna Karenina, but it feels like just like delicious Gossip Girl. Ugh, it's so good. I feel like Betty, the best parts of Betty, one, it's like a bop of a song, but also it is about this boy apologizing, and I feel like we get lots of good boy apologies in this. It is about like a lot of different relationships. It's like a pretty sprawling narrative, but it feels like Gossip Girl. It's so good. I loved it. We are on to my favorite from Folklore. This is my favorite song off of Folklore. I told you I would tell you. That's Peace. I have two suggestions for this one as well. The first one is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I think when I was like trying to come up with these, I like thought of this and immediately started crying, which happens like a lot when I think about A Little Life. But I was thinking about Willem saying these sorts of things to Jude, because if you don't know the story of A Little Life, it is about Jude, this man who's just like had the worst childhood you could ever imagine, like truly. And it starts in his 30s and follows him through the end of his life, and follows not only him but kind of the people around him. I've made a whole video about it because it like broke me. It was one of the first videos I made on this channel, but it is about him dealing with that trauma of his past. Peace to me is this song about this love that is like really good and really important, but is never going to be enough to fix the other person, to like save the other person. And will it be enough if you can never give them peace? And I can just imagine Willem saying that to Jude, because like he will give him as much as he can. I think everyone in Jude's life is probably saying this to Jude, like, is it enough if we can never give you peace? We will love you as much as we can, but we won't be able to fix this. Anyway, if you want to check out A Little Life, make sure to read trigger warnings, even if you don't normally. It is incredibly heavy. It took me like literal months to recover from it, and as I said, sometimes I still cry when I think about it. So like, don't take this lightly, and it's gorgeous. It is one of the best and most beautiful, immersive books I've ever read, but it is incredibly heavy. Incredibly heavy. Okay. My other suggestion is on the other end of the spectrum. If you want something light that still gives you peace vibes, I think The People We Meet on Vacation is a perfect example of this. It's from my queen, Emily Henry, my two queens, Taylor Jenkins Reid, Emily Henry, and I guess Sarah J. Maas, my like trinity of favorite authors. The People We Meet on Vacation is about Alex and Poppy. They met in college and became friends and decided to start going on vacations together every summer. But 2 summers ago, something happened and they're no longer going on vacations together. But Poppy's decided that she wants to have one last vacation with Alex to see if they can mend their friendship. And obviously their romance ensues. And it is gorgeous, but kind of like the main conflict here is like Poppy is like a travel blogger. She wants to travel, she wants to adventure, she never wants to be tied down. And Alex wants like a picket fence and 2.5 kids and a golden retriever, and he wants to be like a high school English teacher, and he wants this like very settled life, and Poppy wants this like kind of wild life. And so I think similarly there could be that question of like, will it be enough if I can never give you what you want out of your life? It's gorgeous. Emily Henry can do no wrong, and this book is no exception. We're on to Hoax, and our third Taylor Jenkins Reid recommendation of this video. Will it stop? Yeah, eventually I'm going to run out of her books. So eventually it will stop. But she keeps writing them. We have a new one coming. I'm so excited. Anyway, it's neither here nor there. I don't know what Hoax is about. I watched the long pong sessions and she didn't illuminate it. I'm confused by Hoax. I think it's about a bunch of different things because she told me that in long pong, but I'm still confused by it. But I decided that mostly it's about kind of the complexities of love and kind of the complexities of relationships. And what book does it better than Miss Taylor Jenkins Reid's One True Loves? One True Loves is about this woman whose husband disappears in a helicopter accident on their 1-year wedding anniversary. They were like high school sweethearts. But then, you know, eventually they got married. He disappears on his their 1-year wedding anniversary. Pick up. The book actually starts several years later. She's now moved back to her hometown. She's she's engaged to someone else, and they find her husband. Her husband has been alive on an island and like swims to shore. And now he's back, and she's like torn between these two men. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. This book made me cry a lot. But now she's like torn between these two men. The man she loved and lost and grieved his loss, and then the man that she started to build a new life with now. So it's about her experience choosing between these two loves and essentially like the two versions of herself. She's become a new person having lost her husband and having grieved his loss and moving back home. It's gorgeous. Taylor Jenkins Reid is like a stunning author that like tells very emotionally poignant stories, as you can tell because I'm crying thinking about this book. But I think it really captures, I think, what Hoax is trying to say, which is like the complexity of love and how love can be incredibly painful, but like no other shade of blue will do. The last recommendation is The Lakes. I loved The Lakes when it came out. I think with Evermore and Folklore, Taylor Swift's bonus tracks are just like next level stunning. And I think The Lakes is just incredible. It is about Taylor wanting to run away to the lakes. And I think The Lakes is less about the lyrics and more about the vibes, which I normally don't say about a Taylor Swift song. And the lyrics are still like so gorgeous. They're so gorgeous, but I think the vibes of The Lakes is like very particular, and I wanted to capture that with my book recommendation, and so I'm recommending Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. I read this book not that long ago. It came out a long time ago, I think before I was born, but a while ago. There's a movie which I haven't seen, but the book is about these two sisters. They have magic, and it's about their life, but it is very like soft and sweet, and it doesn't have like a super strong like central plot arc, but it is kind of more like a wandering story that goes from like their teenage years like into their adult years, and it was gorgeous. I loved it. The sister dynamics are amazing, and just like it is like so cozy. And I think The Lakes is also cozy. Those are all my suggestions for Folklore book recommendations. Like I said, if you want more book recommendations based on Taylor songs, check out my TikTok, where I'm going to be doing this for all of her albums. And then I also have a video coming in a week or two, depending on how long it takes me to read, where I'm going to be going through the suggestions I got in my TikTok comments of books that other people thought would fit these songs, if that makes sense. Because people have been commenting things that they think of when they think of Taylor songs. So if you have any suggestions, you can either leave them in the comments here or on my TikTok, or I don't know, do whatever you want. Just mail me a letter to my house. How can you find my address? I don't know. That's all I have for you today. I will see you in a couple weeks with more Taylor Swift book content, which is like just like the intersection of my two favorite things. And until then, have a great one. Subscribe if you are interested in more content like this, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.